You're listening to the Empowering Process podcast with your host, Gail Kraft. Listen as she holds frank discussions around how your purpose, being present, and trusting your power impacts your life. Whether you're an entrepreneur, leader, or developing your vision, you'll find wisdom and insights you can utilize right now. Welcome your host, Gail Kraft.
Hello, everybody. Gail Kraft here from the Empowering Process podcast. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm here today with a brilliant woman. It's Rita Ernst. Ernst? How do you say your last name?
Ernst.
Okay, it's just perfect. Good for you, Gail.
There's actually a very famous Rita Ernst who is an artist in Germany.
So, no relation.
No relation, but I wish it could be, right?
Well, you've got your own that you're creating. We're going to talk a little bit about that. So Rita, right, has a book coming out. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But since 2020, she has leveraged her expertise in organizational psychology to craft solutions for business owners and their staff members that break through the hostility. Oh, some of us have been there, while restoring pride, teamwork, and most importantly, profits. Through her groundbreaking training and lessons, she reveals how to intentionally cultivate positive thoughts and behaviors instead of automatically reacting from the trappings of a depleted cycle of frustration and discontent. And we're going to actually focus about letting go, and specifically letting go of perfectionism. So I have a little story to share with you, and then the stage is yours. So I never had that problem. Type A personalities definitely are perfectionists. And I think the moment that I really realized that it was a problem for me, I was working as a program manager, had this project that was it was really done, but there were little things that could have been better. And I was working on the finer details. And my boss came up to me and she said, "That's 75% done. Good enough. Let it go. There are projects waiting for you." So it was like tearing my heart out. I was like in tears letting this thing go. But because of that, I got invited on a really important project for the company, huge company-wide initiative that was going on. And I had such an opportunity to meet great people, do great things, and learn so much that they would have gone to another resource if I wasn't cut loose and made available. So if you're hanging on to just fix it just a little bit more, what's the opportunity you're missing because you won't let go? And Rita, you have a story about that and a book about that, right?
I do. The story I want to share, that I think your female listeners will definitely relate to, is actually more about all the pressure and perfectionism I felt as a mother and as a working mother. Right. And I think that is the place where my tendency toward perfectionism really bit me in the butt the strongest. And I love the writing of Glennon Doyle. And I share this quote all the time now from Love Warrior, that she has about having the wrong definition of love, and that we think that being a good friend and being a good parent and loving other people is sheltering them from pain, when perhaps our job is to just be present and be observant of that. And I certainly fell into that trap of,
Right.
As a working mom, I felt judged to have every I dotted, every T crossed. You make the list and make sure that every little thing gets done. I'm at every activity on time, and I'm delivering all the extra things, and it really made me crazy.
So Rita, I think I know for me, because I was in the same boat, that there was a thread of guilt
Yes.
that I wasn't home taking care. So I had to be the best, because I had to prove that it was okay that I was working.
And I'm showing my love to my kids by never dropping a ball.
Yes.
By always being on top of all of that.
Right.
And
Meanwhile, you're a stressed out mess.
yes. I remember at one point in time, one of my good friends said to me, but who's pouring into you? Right. And I think most of us as women, we hit that place. And then as my children grew into their teenage years, and I still have one in her teenage years, and becoming their own person, I still held this definition for my success as a parent was making sure that my kids were perfect too.
Oh, and it's so hard. You're
And
not allowing
it's
them
an
to
impossible
explore.
thing that was making everybody crazy. And I so appreciated those words of Glenn because I had the wrong definition of success for myself as a parent, and I had to let go. And it was a really hard lesson to come, to sort of have my world come crashing in, to realize I got to let go of this because not only is this not working, it's doing damage.
Right. Doing damage to yourself, to your children, because they need to scrape their knee. They need to fall, right? And do it at an age where the damage is not devastating and the lesson can be learned, right?
And to also say that, it is okay to be late for a deadline. In my family growing up, if you weren't 5 minutes early for an event, you were late.
You were just early. Right? For our recording.
Yes, God forbid. I mean, that one of the worst things you could do is keep somebody else waiting.
Right.
That was so disrespectful of them and their time. And that's still ingrained very strongly.
Obviously for me too. I was here waiting for you.
My oldest daughter, we had organized a ride for her to high school in the mornings, so that I could take care of getting her younger sibling who was on a different schedule out the door. And she's still not a morning person, God bless her heart, although she did once, well, 2 summers ago, she worked at a restaurant that is a breakfast and lunch only place, and she was up at 5 a.m. every morning to get, and did it every morning to get into that restaurant. She is not a morning person, but in high school it was like pulling teeth, and I would be like, you have got to get out the door. You cannot keep your ride waiting. Like, she's going to quit us because you're going to make her late, And so I'm harping on my child every morning, get out the door, get out the door, get out the door. And a lot of that was my own anxiety.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And you mentioned it slightly. It's about what you believe you need to do to feel loved.
Yes.
Right. And what will people think of me? I won't be loved if this isn't happening. And what people think of you. I know I was raised with keep your dirty laundry in the house. Don't let the neighbors know what is going on. When you walk out the door, everything is perfect, right? Everything is wonderful, right?
All you have to do is look at most Instagram and Facebook feeds, and that's still the way we publicly portray ourselves.
Oh, if you go to, not so much on LinkedIn because it's such a business focus, but if you go to my Facebook page, I put my bullshit out there. If I'm having a tough time, I want you to know that you can be a successful person and have a shitty day. It's, you can have a day where, I'm not connected. I'm not feeling source. I'm not being inspired, right? And it's like, you know what? I'm going to sit down and eat Oreo popcorn, yummy, and watch TV and just chill out. Yes, I do that when I'm feeling really crappy. I give myself one program. Right.
Yeah,
So
somehow I've given myself the responsibility to never allow my kids to miss a deadline, or be late for something, or that we were gonna hit every specific target. We were going to be right there, and we were going to get that check mark. And that it's hilarious now when looking backward on it, right, from the place that I've gotten to. But it's extraordinary to me how strongly ingrained that was. And it was all from me. It wasn't like anybody else was pushing
Right.
that.
Right. Most of the chaos and most of the angst in our life, I won't even say most, all of it is self-imposed because it depends on our perspective as to what's going on, right? And yes, bad things happen. That's life, but that doesn't mean that you have to get sucked into it, right?
Right.
You can actually step back and I am not one for the Pollyanna rosy glasses thing, because that's BS too. Bad things happen. You don't pretend that they didn't happen, but you learn from it, you grow from it, you accept that it's done and it's over, right? Don't live in it and then move on. And the thing about a perfectionist is, at least for me, so I can only talk from my perspective, is it's hanging on as well. It's not, like you said, it's really not letting go, right? And letting go, breaking up is hard to do. Right. Right. And so what happened that you realized that this was really a problem, and how did you get out of it?
Family therapy is what happened. Like we just sort of hit this crisis point in our family where we weren't connected, and we were not fulfilling the needs of our oldest child in the way that she needed them.
Right.
And again, I had this definition from my childhood that is not the way the world operates anymore, that it's her job to conform to our expectation. I always felt that way, that it was my job to conform to my parents' expectation, but that is not the messages in the broader world and society that our kids are receiving.
Right.
And nor did we come to find out, because of some of my daughter's neurodiversity that we didn't know about until we sort of hit this crisis point. It wasn't going to work that way. But it really sort of took that all to come crashing down in a very ugly, difficult way. I mean, it was this beautiful moment in that we sort of got to hit the reset button as a family and all recommit, right? But first we had to go through the fire.
Right. And I think that, in fact, I know that is the scary part of people reaching out for coaching, for counseling, for guidance, for support, is they know they have to go through the fire. The issue is, if you don't go through the fire, then you live in it,
Yes.
right? And so it just keeps burning. And don't you want to heal? Right? Don't you want to feel what it feels like to have that weight off your shoulder? I have literally watched my clients' shoulders turn back. Their their face changes because they let go of the pressure that they really don't need to hold on to. And the pressure of being on time and early, because I'm the same way, being early and being perfect. Don't let anyone see any flaws in me, right? Is exhausting.
It is. It was, and it is, right? And it exhausts the whole system. I mean, the other part of my story, at least, but I think it's true in the workplace as well. If we go back to the story that you shared, right? You are part of a system. You're part of a team that is contributing things. And if you would have held on to, no, I got to tick and tack every other thing, you would have created this point of exhaustion for yourself, for others around you, potentially.
Right. I had a whole team that I was hanging on to. It wasn't just me. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But for certainly, it's what I felt the most chagrined about in all of that, Gail, was that so many of the things that I knew and I said to my clients from a business perspective, I now had a family therapist saying to me, from a family counseling perspective. And it's like, yeah, I know that. I know that about how you talk to people. I know that about, emotional awareness. I know these things, but I had such blinders because of this definition that I had of what being a successful parent was and required of me.
And God forbid that you weren't.
Yes.
Right. And that's that, guys, we're human beings, and love your, I say, love myself, warts and all, warts and all. Right. And it's looking at the darker side of you and accepting that everybody has those, right? Not everybody is perfect, right? In fact, we all have different strengths and different weaknesses because we exist in a system, right? If we were all the same, there would be no system, and we probably wouldn't be able to create and build.
Right.
Right. Right. It's learning from each other and giving each other space. But when you're stuck in this need to impress others and fill that void, for me, I'm talking about filling a void of not feeling like I belong, not feeling like I'm loved, not feeling like I'm good enough, not feeling like I'm worthy. And so I have to prove it by being perfect in everything. I was the perfect wife, I was perfect mother, I was perfect employee, perfect boss, right? Perfect friend. It was awful because I was a wreck, a wreck. And, and it all fell apart, by the way. Yours didn't fall apart because when it started to, went for help, right? Mine all fell apart. It all tumbled down. Right. And I can remember having a full weekend more than once, rolled up in a ball, not being able to get out of bed because I had a breakdown, emotionally broken down. Right. And that's what happens. Your body will give out.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think that, whether your issue is perfectionism or something else, I think at its core, it's a couple of things that we're naming that I just want to be very specific about, Gail.
Yes.
One is this story that you hold in your head about who you have to be.
Right.
Nobody gave me that script and said, I'm responsible. I have to take responsibility for that script.
Mm-hmm.
I'm the author.
You're the author, but you're also the editor.
Yes, and I get to be the editor, but I'm the author and the collaborator in this. Right? And the second thing is reconciling this idea of looking outside in the fear of outside judgment. I mean, I think one of the things that both you and I are talking about, and when you actually start to talk about it, again, it seems kind of silly. Like, so what's the worst thing that would have happened if the other moms at school thought I was imperfect? Or thought that what's the worst thing that would have, like, why did I blow that up into such an important thing to avoid or to protect around?
Right. And why do I even think I'm that important in their life that they even recognize that I'm imperfect? Right.
So, it's, and the one thing I will say, and I think that you would probably relate to this as well, Gail, is at the time that we came into corporate life as women, we were definitely kicking through the old boys club and trying to get sound footing. Women didn't just walk in.
Oh, no, we had to earn every moment.
Yes. Yep. And so there were skills and expectations that I had identified for my success in corporate life as to who I had to be and the armor I had to wear walking into work. And you couldn't take too many hits and you were out. So if you wanted to get to stay and play, right? And so I think I did bring a lot of that into my personal life. And so I brought the wrong part of my work and my work knowledge into my personal life. Isn't that a shame? But I did, the things that made me able to stand toe to toe and get into the room and advance my career. That strong woman, I brought her to my family life.
Well, how you do one thing is how you do everything, whether you admit it or not. We think we can. I mean, we do have different characteristics, different archetypes that we bring up. You know, we have the lover, we have the mother, we have the muse, we have the worker. But there's still a thread of how we approach things as being who we are, and we can change that. But we have to first recognize what is not working. And if it's not working at home, believe me, it's not working at work either. Right? We think it is, but it really, really isn't. But I did the same thing. You're absolutely right. I had that armor on. I can remember getting a job because I've been up there. I mean, I've been on the board of directors of some big companies. And a boss of mine came in with a set of brass balls and she put them on my desk and she said, I really don't think you need these, but just in case.
That's tremendous.
Yes. Right. And she
You
was
know,
basically telling me this was going to be tough.
I didn't have that many women bosses above me, right?
No, no. But I will honestly say the first mentor I had was a man in John Hancock. That's the company that I ended up on the board of directors and like for a moment and said, I don't like this and got out. But it's the first time I had a mentor. And it was eye-opening to have the first time we did something and it failed, he came over, he goes, hey, we lost that game. Let's brush ourselves off. What's next? And I'm like, this is cool. I didn't have a finger pointed at me going, you failed. I got, well, that was fun. We lost that game. What are we doing next? And I'm like, holy moly, this is how the boys play.
Right.
Right. And that was amazing. And I had that attitude through most of my career after that it was a game, right? Until I was in a company where they didn't play. It wasn't a game. And that was not a successful place for me to be. But for the most part, GE, I love GE. It was a game. Very, very clear the rules and the boundaries of the game, but you knew the goalpost was, and you knew who your team was, and how to work with the team to get to the goalpost. So it was fun, but that doesn't translate well at home. Home is not a game.
Yeah, and I mean, it's there are important lessons there I want my girls to know. Like one of the rules in my house is no drama. And that was always one of the rules in my team too,
Right,
like
right.
with my direct reports. Like, we're just not going to do this drama thing.
No.
That's wasted energy.
Right? Exactly.
We got smarter things to do. So I mean, there are good things that come out of it, but it is very interesting to be at this stage of my life retrospectively looking
Right.
at it. And if I were whispering backwards to my earlier self, it would really be this question of, what is that vision that you're operating from, and why?
And why is it important? And it's really interesting because I ask that in business all the time. Whenever I was asked, Gail, we'd like, this project implemented or that change to happen or this, because I was all about efficiency and change. And I would be like, why is it important to do that? What is the purpose of this? Right. And I learned that from, I worked in a company that was matriarchal. I learned a lot about that. And in that company, if I had been given a job, get this project done, every senior manager that I would hit with that project, I would sit with one-to-one and say, here's the problem. Here's what we want to do to solve it. Here's how it impacts your department. Can I have a resource? Yes. So every leader knew why they were involved in the project. It was beautiful.
Yes, that
That's
sounds
yes, it was
so good.
yes. And this is, that's the company that tore me from being perfectionist, right? So stop, let it go. And I had someone, a vice president who was not my client, call me because we had our business units because he couldn't get a project through. And my business unit said, oh, yeah, she always gets her projects through. I don't know what your problem is, right? So he called me and I said, first of all, I can't help you because you're not who I represent. So you did not socialize your project. You went to the steering committee expecting a yes, and no one on the committee was socialized. Your project is now dead in the water. You will not be able to do it. So what I did for him was I broke it apart, and pieces of the project we could slip into other projects going on to get what he needed accomplished. And I said, so whoever your representative is, why don't you have them call me and I'll teach them how to socialize the project. Right. So, and that's matriarchal.
Yeah, but you know what's striking me about that a little bit, Gail, is that when I think about my story from this place of family and my kids and motherhood, um, I do feel like there was a lot of socializing input. Like there was a lot of conversation about even when they were young. Well, what preschool list are you on? Right. So
Right.
in the right preschool. Right. And then where I live in Louisville, Kentucky, we have school selection system. So it's not just this is your neighborhood school and that's where you go. There are all of these different opportunities to make choice potentially, or to at least advocate a choice for your child. And so then there's this whole pathway. Which pathway are you taking and which schools and what are the best schools and what sports? I mean, kids, when I was a kid, it's like this season, it's summer season, I'm playing softball. It's winter season, I'm playing basketball. It's fall season, I'm playing volleyball. Like that was just, but it wasn't like I'm trying to get on a travel team and I'm trying to do like there's all of this social messaging that I think also contributed. I can't blame it.
Right.
But environmentally, it was adding to my own definition and my anxiety. And so here you've got this great story of how socializing can give you access to what you need. And at the same time, there's this other version of socializing that can really get you caught up in your own turmoil.
Exactly. And that's life. And this is right. That's the universal law of polarity, right? You can't have one without the other. What is good today can be bad tomorrow. That's why we always have to say why. We always have to go, these are my values, these are my boundaries. Are my values being met? Yes. Are my boundaries being honored? Yes. Cool. Move forward. Any no, you need to stop and ask yourself why. Right. And it's exhausting to be alive and do that. Right. But it is deteriorating not to.
Well, I have several very good people in my network that are mental health providers. And they all happen to be women. And what they all have in common is that they are part of this movement to remove the stigma around mental health services and to make mental health care equivalent to all other medical care. So, the philosophy being that if you go in for an annual checkup or you have, specific test run because of your age or other things, that there should be an opportunity and a paid part of your your medical care for you to do an annual check-in with a mental health professional where you can identify, are there things that I'm struggling. You can go to a general physician and say, I feel depressed, and get a pill.
Yes.
But you can't get a paid for check-in with a mental health professional to say, I'm feeling anxious or I'm feeling depressed, for them to say, okay, well, here's a treatment of care. Let's get at the core of what's underneath of that.
Right.
And see if there's some things we can help you fix in your life. And I'm with them. Right. It seems kind of crazy. And imagine what would be possible if we actually really did have that kind of access and that kind of connection with a mental health provider, just like we do a primary physician, where we can say, I feel like my quality of life is deteriorating, but I can't figure out why. And they say, I got you. Let's talk about that.
And that, so from a coaching perspective, so I've been doing this thing for over over a decade. I'm on like year 13. And my clients can do that. They can call me and say, I feel like I fell off the wagon, right? Um, or, I've lost my bearing. And I'll be like, well, let's talk about it. And we'll have a half-hour talk. And then it'll be like, well, do you want to kick in some sessions? And, once a month, every other week, once a week, depending on what's going on, right? I will flex depending on their need, right? Right? They don't need me all the time. I don't want them to need me all the time, but I want them to feel comfortable in calling when they do. Right. And I recently have one, we do a once a month thing because he's just that amazing. And he's the last time we met, thank you so much for introducing me to my inner child. This is a man who is thrilled that he made peace with his inner child, right? That's the one who's looking to be perfect. That's the one who's looking for love. That's the one who is looking to fill that gap, right? Right.
But tell me if I'm wrong, but these are all private pay clients.
These are all private paid. Yes, because I'm not a medical professional, but I probably have more training and more experience than many of them. Right. But that's fine. That's fine. And
yeah, and not to take away from that, but that work comes from a place of privilege. People who do not have the economics for that.
Right. Exactly.
Which is where, if it were part of our healthcare system, and if
or
you
some way for them to, right. And there are ways to get those types of things paid for. There really, really are. But there still is some out of pocket, and some people just don't have the $25.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Right. It's do I go and see someone for my head, or do I put food on the table? Right. It does get to that point, and there's a stressor.
Well,
Right.
and then even for the people that can theoretically have access, actually finding a provider that can take them in is a whole nother challenge. There's, it's a challenging place in our system, but I do support my mental health friends, and it's wonderful to that there are practitioners like you who are available to folks who want to do the work.
Right. And it takes work. And this is the scary thing. And then it's a lifetime of work. I mean, I call myself an empowerment master only because I've got so many tools that I have at my disposal and can pretty quickly figure out what tool you're comfortable with, right?
Yes.
So I don't force my style or my program on anybody. I have choices. And if I'm not the right person, I have no ego. I will find the right person for you. Right? Because it's about your success.
Yes.
It's about your success. And that's the whole thing. We've been through experiences in life. You've been through, I mean, the whole, when you watch your family fall apart and you realize that, you were just trying to do your very best, and your very best is toxic to one of your children, facing that, congratulations. It's tough to do that.
Oh yeah. I mean, I never failed at anything the way I felt like I failed
Right.
in that moment.
Right. And you didn't, because you recognized it. And you did it
Well,
because you owned it.
I owned it. I recognized it, but I also had I had the privilege of being able to pay for the services that we needed to get
Right.
through that as a family. If I were a single mom working paycheck to paycheck, it never would have happened, right?
Right.
That possibility wouldn't have been available to me.
I would strongly suggest, for anyone listening to this who are in the situation where they feel like resources are not available, to really look around, check, especially the YWCA, right? Check into them, check into the Chamber of Commerce and see if they know of an organization that has access that is free. I coached a group that do that kind of service for teens at risk for free, in my local town, and I've done some coaching with them. Pretty amazing. The resources are available. You just have to ask. And just, if you don't get the right answer, go someplace else. Don't think the door is closed.
Well,
Right?
and I can add from my background that if you work for a corporation with and are participating in the benefits plan, it is highly likely that they have something called the EAP, which is short for the Employee Assistance Program.
Right.
And one of the things that is typically offered in that is a limited number of sessions for mental health care.
Right. So
That
you
can
can
be used
start.
individually or with a family.
Right.
So never hesitate to ask your employer to see
Right.
if that is part. It's a benefit that so many people are not paying attention to, because you hear about all that on like day one, and if you've been working someplace for 10-15 years and you've never used it, you've probably forgotten all about it. So
here's a call out to you, managers and leaders. As a leader, I can tell you about 3 stories off the top of my head from one company where I brought my staff to HR to leverage those types of services. One was someone who was going through a divorce and she was drinking, right? And what was the sign? Not coming in on Friday, missing Mondays. I went to HR, looked at it, go, do we have a drug or an alcohol abuse problem? Just by that record alone. And I said, yes, what do? We have a program we can put her in, right? Another was losing his eyes and who didn't want to tell us, right? And I noticed, my staff noticed something was going on. He and I had a hard time. Guess what? We got in touch with the Blinds Association, who came and gave him a special keyboard, started giving, but if he did it, he didn't feel comfortable to ask. So employers, pay attention.
Yes.
And offer the help. Right? Because you know what HR has available. Use it, right? So some people that gentleman was afraid, he would lose his job. I'm losing my sight. I'm going to lose my job. Like, no, we have ways to help you keep your job because you're awesome. We don't want to lose you. Right? So
yes. Well, I think that's an interesting bridge, if you don't mind if I take it, Gail, to talking about my book, Show Up
Yes, thank you.
Positive. Because what you're talking about leaders paying attention, that was really the entry point for my work that led to writing about the book. And I think as a manager of people, or as a natural leader in your team, because those don't have to be synonymous things,
right?
If you are paying attention and you're in tune, you will see shifts in behavior. And when those shifts stay over time, it's a really good signal, right? That you need to reach out and connect.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So what, I'll give you one more story, and then I want you to let us know how we can get in touch with you if we want to know more about you. I had an employee who loved her job. So you're talking about seeing shifts. And I noticed that she was miserable every day. This is a person who loved her job, right? And so I called her in and I said, "So what's going on?" I have to look for another job, and I really don't want to. And I'm like, "Well, why are you looking that?" I'm confused. Her and her boyfriend had moved in together and they were not making it financially.
Mm.
So I said, "If you don't mind, ask him if he's comfortable with me looking at your budget. And if I can see holes and figure out how you can survive and do well, will you stay?" And she said, "You'll do that?" And I'm like, "Heck yeah, I want to keep you." Sure enough, they had money just seeping through their fingers. So I put them on a budget. Like 2 weeks later, she's all bright and chipper. And she's like, "Yeah, we're still going out at night. We're still enjoying our life. It's not like you said you can never, have fun. But now we plan it, we budget for it, and we have the money for it. This is awesome. Thank you."
I love that story, Gail. That is
Yes,
so good.
yes.
That is
It's
so
paying
very good.
attention.
Yes, it
I would
is.
I would have lost someone who didn't want to go. That's crazy. That's crazy, right? That's where I have a problem with the term human resources. They're human beings. They're not a human resource. It's not a plug.
Well, I know the whole history of that because I grew up in the human resources organization, and it was just evolving into the term human resources when I was, I'm dating myself here, but when I was entering into the workforce. And that the term human resources and the focus on the word resource was actually driven by the need to get the financial part of the organization to treat the budget for the people part of the organization with the same care and respect that they gave to the other operating budgets.
To give the human beings care and respect, the same care and respect that they give the operating system.
Yeah. So, you want to purchase equipment, you want to do this. Oh, we got money, money, money. We need to put people, we don't have money for people. We don't have money for training. We don't have money for, and it's like, but this is an investment in the business. No, an investment in the business is this piece of equipment that we can depreciate and we can,
right.
I mean, literally that was the fight that got us to the label human resources.
Yeah, well, it's wearing thin, but that whole thing is changing, and we'll talk a little bit. I wrote something down for us to talk about when we're done. So Rita, how can people get in touch with you and tell us about your book?
So find me at igniteextraordinary.com. You get links to all of my socials there. You can sign up to join my Monday positivity email. It's not a sales funnel, it's just part of my email list where every Monday I give you one word of inspiration to bring some positivity into your work week. So all of that is out there. My speaking services and my book and all the information about that are available under the Show Up Positive tag. Show Up Positive is the name of my book that came out June the 14th of this year.
It looks
We're
beautiful.
just coming up on the 3-month anniversary, and in celebration on the 14th of this month, I am doing a Zoom book discussion that's open to the public. You can find links on my Facebook, which is Ignite Extraordinary, or on my LinkedIn under Rita Ernst Positivity Influencer, and you can sign up for that event. Come join me. I'm going to read some excerpts, answer questions, all of that kind of fun stuff. So now that summer, we've said goodbye to summer. I'm kind of sad about saying goodbye to summer, But it is, now an opportunity to connect with my readers. So I'm very excited about doing that. So that's the best. Those are the best ways to find me. I am the most active on LinkedIn. It's really my platform of choice, but I do have Instagram, which is @IgniteExtraordinary, and Facebook as well. I don't tweet and I don't TikTok.
Yeah, me neither. Thank you so much, Rita. And I will have this stuff in the notes. Thank you, everybody, for listening to the Empowering Process podcast. If this interested you or excited you, please do like it. Let us know. If a question came up, do note the question. Maybe Rita and I will get back together and answer your question. And if you know someone who could actually learn or grow or get something out of this, please do share it out. But then let them know that we're here for them. Thank you so much, Rita. This has been amazing. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Empowering Process podcast. Be sure to visit Gail at gailcraft.com to learn more about how she serves thought leaders, entrepreneurs, and goal seekers. And remember, if you like this broadcast, be sure to share and subscribe so you don't miss an episode.